Okay, now what? Yes, my name is Guru Prem Singh Khalsa, which means the beloved of the Guru, and I'm doing my very best to become my name, which means I'm trying to become a living act of love. That's my destiny, and hopefully I will succeed at becoming it. But in order to do that, I have certain things I have to fulfill. And to fulfill these things, I'm going to need enough vitality. So I do practice Kundalini Yoga. I actually practice other styles as a supplement to that, but essentially Kundalini Yoga, which provides me enough vitality in order to fulfill whatever destiny I have come to fulfill. I also need to meditate because otherwise I get trapped in thinking like many people. So if I don't meditate, I'll get stuck in my head and I won't listen to my heart, which is a challenging thing to do when you've got all that competition from all that information that's floating between your ears. You see, I'm sitting in lotus right now. I've been given the title by Yogi Bhajan some years ago as posture master, which I always thought was an interesting thing to give me, although I had done postures. I never considered myself a master yet. I figure, well, if I have the title, I might as well see what I can do to be worthy of it. So I did manage to go through and learn quite a few different postures. Whether you would call it mastery or just an understanding, that's up for discussion. But fortunately, even in my advancing years, for reasons that are known and maybe unknown, I can still do many things that many folks would want to know how they're done. As you can see right now, I'm sitting in lotus. It's a reasonably comfortable way to sit. There are things you can do from this. If you can do lotus, you may find yourself with the ability to do things like a supported lotus like this. Now, if you understand the nature of leverage and a bit about gravity, you can take advantage of that if you know how to use your sacred core. And then, maybe you might do this. These are just little postures, and they're really mostly for show and tell. I'll tell you a little secret though. If you know how to use your sacred core, which is this domain that corresponds with the sacrum, if you know how to engage that, it'll open up your hips and allow energy, if you wish, to move to your heart, making these sort of things natural and almost normal. And if you can do that, then here we go. Anyway, these are nice party tricks. Yeah, is that enough showing off?
Yeah, perfect.
When you're in your 20s, it's showing off. When you're in your 50s, it's science.
Can you explain that?
Well, I can't do these things with just, straight on energy. I have to leverage it. I have to sort of invoke the spirit of Archimedes. He was the godfather of leverage. He said, if you give me a large enough lever, I can move the earth. And essentially, if you know where to put the energy into the earth will give back many times more than you put into it. And that's just basic leverage. So that's what I do. Now if I use that leverage energy for bad things, maybe I'd be better off without it. But if I can take my vitality and somehow remember to use it to serve virtue, which is essentially the qualities of heart, the heart can give back to my body more vitality. In terms of better leverage and actual better strength. And then the more challenging part for me, if I can teach my intellect to also be a servant, I have the gift of more intelligence. So this is just the idea of having your heart rule. There's a biomechanics. If you teach your lower body to serve your heart and you teach your head to serve your heart, the mechanics of that service will bring you to balance and alignment. That's one way to describe the purpose.
So, what are you offering to the world?
What am I offering to the world? I'm offering them a method to achieve calmness, contentment, and comfort. You'll notice I'll say things in threes. I'm teaching calmness, I'm teaching contentment, and I'm teaching comfort. But it's a formula. In order to get to comfort, you need to know what calmness is. And calmness is a state of equalization, and for the basics of it, it's the body equalizing the breath, where the speed of the inhale is equal to the speed of the exhale. That's pretty much calm. Your contents, like your heart's contents, such as kind-hearted, warm, big, brave, light-hearted, sacred-hearted, true-hearted. If you teach the equalized energy to serve those heart-centered virtues, it allows you to embody. If you can embody virtue, it brings your body to greater symmetry, balance, alignment. And the very nature of symmetry, balance, and alignment is comfort. But this is a deeper comfort because it comes with a type of physical fulfillment. It's both physical, emotional, and it's spiritually fulfilling. That's what I teach. I mean, I've been trained, over the years. I was a gymnastic coach, so I'm very good at progression. You learn this, to this, to this, to this, to this. Slow and steady wins the race. That's kind of how I follow it.
Got it. So what do you think that yoga offers people in particular?
In particular, well, each person is going to offer something different. I mean, for some it's pure physical therapy. For others it's a method of processing life's challenges. I mean, in reality, what we're here to do is to face life's challenges without some yogic skill and the deeper, philosophy behind it. You won't, one, know why you're being challenged, and two, you won't have any tools in order to face them. Our lives is essentially measured by the courage we bring to our challenges.
That's beautiful. So piggybacking off of that, right, so you're Sikh.
I am a Sikh.
Right. So how does that relate to what most people know as yoga?
Well, to be a Sikh the essence of the Sikh faith is yoga, which is union. We do a number of things in order to achieve that. My life, you could break it into 4 cornerstones. Service. I serve the world with as much love and grace as I can remember, with the hope of feeling I am being served by the one who created me. So I'm not looking for anything in the world to give back. I'm only doing it to be connected to the one that gives me the grace and the resources to serve. That's one cornerstone. And by that, it moves you towards union with your Creator. I should back up a little bit. The first thing you have to accept as a Sikh is that the greatest miracle of all times is the fact that you exist. And you're here on earth to get to know the source of your existence. For that, you have to be on a path of unison, this oneness, and kind of the motto or the creed for this journey is you have to realize that if you don't see God in all, you won't see God at all. You can't be an us or them, my faith or my creed against anyone else. The common usness. So serving all. So I have learned to bless all, serve all. I only have to fix a few though. 2, because I tend to be a thinker, which is both a problem and it's a gift. I have to make sure I don't overthink myself into a place where I can't listen. So I meditate. I meditate on one of God's many holy names, and there's many to choose from. The primary goal of meditating on a divine name is to get out of your head. Secondarily, and beyond that, is to deliver you to the source of that name. You're calling God by His name, you call someone by His name. Not only does you get his attention, which is really the deepest part of you, but you pay attention. So it brings you from thinking to listening, is essentially what meditating does in that capacity. 3, because I'm out in the world, I want to act like the person I want to become. I dress the part, I speak the part, I do the part. Everything about me is an act. I'm just acting the part with the hope that one day the act stops and I'll be able to do it by heart. And 4, and finally, you have to have something to bow your head to. So Sikhs bow their head. It was called the Guru Granth, the Siddhi Guru Granth. And it's the Word of God, has brought forth by men of God. Much like the Torah brought forth by Moses. Okay, so we do that, we bow our heads to that word. And the purpose of that's our Guru. That's what guides us through this great, formless, expansive universe. Otherwise, one's lost. God is great, but without a guide, you're lost.
So you're saying Guru. What is a Guru?
Guru means dark to light. In the Sikh faith, we don't have human gurus. What we do is we have the Word of God. So I am the beloved of that Word, which takes us, limited humans, from the darkness to the light.
So let's back up a second. What's your story, right? Were you always like this, or did you have a transformation?
I always like this?
Yeah.
Was I always sitting like this, wearing white with a turban and a beard? Oh no, I have a story. I was once like I was born in the 50s and followed. I was born to a very Reform Jewish family. And I jokingly say when people ask, what was your former religion? I will say with half seriousness, Liberal Democrat, of course. So we weren't religious, but we were a very politically active family, and our way of expressing our Jewish faith was by political activity. So that's how I was raised. But it didn't provide any real spiritual food for me because the culture and the traditions of Judaism were really not celebrated or practiced. For the most part, they were sort of tolerated as what people did, and that man on earth, through his political might, would make the world better place for possibly God to live, which is an interesting idea, but it ultimately didn't work for me because it became a virtuous ego trip. And eventually I found my soul very hungry, and thus began my search. I actually knew, or I knew since I was very little I needed something more than was being offered, but I didn't know where to look for it. And it began when I accidentally ended up in a yoga class. And I say accidentally because I just literally stalked a girl until she managed to recognize me and then invited me to her pantomime and yoga class. That's how back in college, many years ago. And then I continued. And then from there, once I had a taste of it, I realized I had been living a very incomplete life, and I needed not only the physical exercises to learn to be relaxed and calm, I needed soul food directly. Thus I began a search, and in fact I actually revisited Judaism for a short time, actually, very Orthodox Judaism, and see, well, I might as well go to see what the most Orthodox people do in that faith, and after a short time I realized it wasn't going to suit the type of lifestyle I was interested in living. And I searched out Taoism. I studied for a number of years with Master Ni. I studied with Buddhism in the form of with Aikido and some other aspects of Buddhism with a great teacher named Wayne Trudem. And I did that when I was about 23. And then I kept, doing Kundalini Yoga, and I kept finding my way back, to Yogi Bhajan's classes. And
so was that popular at the time?
It was popular where I lived, but it wasn't popular in any sense at all.
Was it just him, or did he have multiple?
He had lots of students.
Okay.
At that time, it was just, my first exposure to Kundalini Yoga was actually in high school. I didn't actually practice, but I had many close friends who were. This is 1970. So I jokingly say my first involvement with Kundalini Yoga was trying to convince my friends it was silly. But later on, it wasn't that many years later, that I actually ended up in that class, and then I've been in that class ever since.
Wow. So maybe let's talk about that, right? Because as you take on the Sikh faith, you have to make vows, right? You don't just really, no.
No, you don't. If you take on the Sikh faith, you don't have to make any vows at all, you just live it. If you take on certain aspects of it, if you decide you want to live as Khalsa, you can take Khalsa vows. But it's not a requirement. There's no hierarchy. There's no priestly upper echelon that holds you to a particular standard. It doesn't work that way. It's really a lowerarchy. We have administrators, but there's nobody at the top, deciding who goes forward and who doesn't.
But did you make those vows?
I did.
Okay.
Probably 25 years ago, I think it was. I took Khalsa vows. I took what's called Amrit. I decided I would make a permanent commitment to live in a certain way. And if you take these Khalsa vows, what's called Amrit, which means the nectar, you're committing yourself to living in a certain fashion, dressing in a particular way, doing certain devotions every day. And Khalsa means pure. I'm trying to live as pure as possible. The ego is a challenging thing. It's a disease, but it's also the cure. So I've had to put my ego in a particular Khalsa template in order to have it come out the other side something better than it went in.
Okay, so speaking about that for a second, I have spent, a long time with you, so I know a little bit about your sadhana, but I'm wondering if you can share that with other people.
Well, first the word sadhana means, it's spiritual discipline. And I do have a spiritual discipline. Some days is better than others, but I do have a discipline. And my goal of this discipline is to get up early in the morning, what we refer to as the Amrit Vela, the nectar hours. To get up early, take a cold shower because it physically wakes you up, And then I proceed and go downstairs and I do a particular prayer called Japji, which translates Song of the Soul. I do that, and then I'll do some simple exercises because I like to save the big part of my yoga for generally later in the day. And then I'll meditate. I'll meditate in the various forms of what's called Nam Simran, which is meditating in God's holy name. And I'll do that for an hour. And then I will go almost every day to what's called a Gurdwara, which means the gate of the Guru. And this is a few blocks from where I live, and this is where kirtan, devotional singing of God's praises is done. I participate with that every day, pretty much every day. And that usually brings us to about 6:45. And then that's my basic sadhana, but it's not enough for me. I'm not kind of a hardcore case. I mean, not that I'm hardcore about it or fanatic. I just need a little more. So I do other practices during the day. There are other meditations I'll find time for. And then I do an evening practice, all much shorter, maybe 20 minutes in the evening, another type of meditation, sort of a good night prayer of sorts. And that's, I do this because I have to buy myself insurance for a day. I do my sadhana so I can have 24 hours of coverage.
Can you explain?
You invoke, God's praise, God's name, and using for His, glory, if you want to use that expression, so that you are covered, you are shielded by His grace. I mean, anybody can do anything. You can do it with ego, or you can do it with your amigo. I have to just remember that I have an amigo that rules my heart, and I have to keep, that relationship alive. And it's easy to forget. It's really easy to get caught up in the stuff.
Even for you?
Of course it is. In fact, it is. That life's a challenge. I have tools to face the challenges, and my courage is challenged constantly. Gotta constantly remember, wait a minute, and the remembering requires listening. But when you get emotional, you stop listening, you get into your thinking, and you think you're listening, but you're hearing the noise between your ears. And the quiet voice that would speak on behalf of truth, but you have to quiet your head noise, can't be heard.
With that in mind, you said earlier, well, we shouldn't get caught up on the specifics of the different systems that we choose. So I'm wondering if you can go further into that.
Let me see if you got that quote.
Okay, yeah.
You should in the specifics. I'm not sure if I understand or agree with that, so could you?
Yeah, what I thought you said was that we shouldn't be too involved in the differences between our spiritual practices and more involved with the essence of them.
Oh, I was making it before the cameras, and we were talking about two great gurus, if you will, who lived at the same time. One was the Baal Shem Tov, who began the Hasidic movement in, I guess it's now Poland. And then there was Guru Nanak, who began a reformation, essentially, of Hinduism and Islam and everything else, Buddhism as well, Christianity. His mission started in, it's now Pakistan, but it was India at the time. And they were actually teaching the same message. Interestingly enough, it lived at the same time, getting back to the essential truth that God is one. The one does all, and we're part of the all. And if you can't see the one and all, you're not seeing. Yes, but there are different ways based on cultures and differences in temperaments and evolution. Not everyone should be living like this, but I wouldn't be able to realize my destiny if I didn't. It's very likely inappropriate for you to do the exact things I'm doing or follow the same, path. But if you make your commitment to your path and the Guru which guides you, you too will, fulfill your destiny. The only thing you have to remember is if you believe in us, we can have a friendly relationship. If you believe in us and them, it will become adversarial.
What does that mean?
That means my way or the highway. If you believe that your path to truth is the only path to truth, you're not on the path to truth at all.
Yeah. So, going back, a lot of people want both and, right? They want to be able to live the life the way that they're living it, while also acquiring the benefits of the spiritual life and the spiritual practice.
What do you mean by the life that they're living it?
Well, the relationships that they currently have, going out and doing the things that they currently do, going to the movies and having fun with their friends.
Let me see if I can go through the list. Are you suggesting people want to be able to go out and have fun without consequence? Party when they want to, drink when they want to, sleep and have sex with whom they want to, whenever they want to, and not have any of that interfere with their particular commitment to their new character. Is that what you're asking?
Or their lives in general.
Well, their lives in general. Look, there are rules. If you wish to succeed in this life, there are only 3 rules you need to know. And there are actually 3 tools. And the rules are obey, serve, and love. And when you're learning yoga, the vinyasa practices, or even Kundalini, it's about obey your breath. Breath-connected movements. Listen to your breath as it connects your movement. You teach your breath to serve the heart, because the heart sits on the breathing muscle. You teach your breath to serve the heart. So you can listen to your heart and one day do things by heart. When you do things by heart, you'll be granted the excellence. So that's basically a yogic formula. And if you're not, obeying, well, people don't like the word, so they want to do what they want. They want all the yogic, cool stuff. They want to say, I practice yoga, but most people aren't interested in pursuing a path of peace. They want the yoga to serve their path to their pleasures. And here's the thing, this is something I learned from a Kabbalistic scholar. I hope I'm paraphrasing it right. It goes something like this. No pleasure should be taken. Wow, no pleasure should be taken. What that means is that you don't take pleasures, you receive them. When you bless your food, no one ever says, Dear God, thank you for this wonderful meal we are about to take. No one says take, we're about to receive. The art of receiving, when you bless something in God's name, you receive it, has this blessing. But if you take it because your emotions and ego want it, I want this, I want that, I want this, and because you can buy it, or take it, or charm your way, or impress your way, or amaze your way into getting your feelings met, there's a consequence to that. You're taking without receiving, and therefore your body will record the karma. It starts off as guilt, but eventually it'll become shame. And then the whole thing collapses.
Now, what about someone who says to you, no, that's not me. I can take, and I don't feel any guilt or any shame.
That's fine. We'll see what happens over time. Time's long, the time of the universe is long. Your time on earth is short. It will be taken from you. If you take it, will be taken. 3 things get taken. And I defy you to show me the exception. Eventually, your resources will be taken, if you're a taker. If not your resources, then your friends and family will be taken. If that doesn't do it, eventually your health will be taken.
So one or the other. Okay, so
you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And so if you're a taker, it will be taken from you. If you're a giver, it will be given to you. It's a hard thing to do because we're very insecure, and I know this from experience about being insecure. Yeah, I'll be generous when I'm rich. Well, then you won't become the prosperity, the spirit. Your spirit won't grow, nor all the blessings that come with it because you put a condition on it. I'll be generous once you pay me. But if your spirit isn't generous, you're not even open to receive a blessing. And that's a hard thing to do. And just to quote Gandhi, he said, you want to become the change you see in the world. You want to make yourself that change. And otherwise, that's the whole act like you want to be. Act like the person you want to become. Become the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah. I just know from my own experience and also people that I work with, people that I know, oftentimes people do want to become the change they want to see in the world, but they find themselves unable to, for whatever reason.
That's because they have yet to do. One is that they haven't met a proper teacher that they're willing to bow their head. It's not they're bowing to the head physically to the teacher, but to the teachings. So you have to be willing to do, that's the obey. Okay. You have to find a teaching, whether it's the Torah, and whether it's being represented by a rabbi to help you learn, or some other teacher. You have to be willing to bow your head to that, and obey it, and serve it, and love it, because that's what will deliver you to your own soul. Otherwise, you're just dancing in circles around this stuff and making a nice pretense.
Yeah, because one thing that I know is that we worked together when I was younger, and you've also worked with a lot of my friends. And, I remember coming in depressions, and I was seeing a therapist at the time. And, the therapist, I'd leave, and, I wouldn't really feel so good. But I'd get in here, and we'd talk for a little bit, but then you'd say, all right, do this, do that, do that. And I would start to move, right? So there was this physical aspect to it. So do you feel like, that sort of getting people to actually do something is really important.
Well, the whole purpose and point of that is, look, the exaltation comes as you embody virtue. If you're in a human body, the best thing you can do is embody, have kindness running through your veins, have courage running through your veins and your nerves and through your synapses. Compassion, go through all the heart-named virtues. You want that circulating through you, to and from your heart. If you're on a path to do that, you cannot do that without guidance, though.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. I mean, how would you even know what to do without a teacher? I mean, how would you learn anything? How would you even learn to walk if you didn't have two parents to copy even? Humans are different than animals. Animals have things more built in terms of instinct and impulse. They don't have to be taught how to breathe, to calm down. Humans, in order to get to their deeper intuition, need to be taught. Once you got past your parents, you're a wise humans looking for a teacher to teach them how to have a relationship with their soul. That's what distinguishes you from the porpoises, who may be more intelligent than you, but they will never be held accountable for their behavior. You will.
Yeah. So let me ask you some final questions here. One is, I know you've written 3 books, right? Divine Alignment, The Heart Rules, and Everyday Devotion. All amazing books. You want to tell us a little bit about what you were trying to get at in these books, what you wanted to communicate?
Well, if I'm holding up, a little self-promotion doesn't hurt. Divine Alignment is a manual. It's a great little manual for the basics of yoga, how to use breath, bandhas, drishti, focus. It's using this Kundalini Yoga as the system, but in fact, you could apply these techniques to any yogic system, any martial arts system, gymnastics, dance, wouldn't matter. Basics are basics. Fundamentals, in fact, are fundamentals. And then this book called The Heart Rules, which seems like a children's book, but in fact it's another manual that talks about how to make your heart the ruling body. And it uses Kundalini Yoga to show you all the different ways you can relate to your heart through physical, mental, and spiritual practices. Because I probably didn't mention, but good posture is how you hold your heart. Most people have been raised to hold their head as the important part of them. But if you learn to use your sacred core to hold your heart, the rest will come into balance. That book really delves into that in a deeper way. And then I wrote my memoirs, my experience with Kundalini Yoga and Sikh Dharma. And that is this book called Everyday Devotion, which came out about a year ago. And I've been blessed with some musical skill, and I've done a number of albums I highly recommend you check out. Heal Me as an album, and one called Kirtan Suela. They're almost like the soundtrack for the book, The Everyday Devotion. When I'm not doing that, I work with people individually. I do various therapies in this room. Some type of interesting hands-on body work with best loose description of what it is. Otherwise, I'm an ordained minister. So I didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that.
No, I've been an ordained minister for a bit in Sikh Dharma. So I use ministerial skills as well as gymnastic coaching skills, yogic skills, hands-on. I've been blessed to have a few tools in the bag of tricks.
Beautiful. So, last question here. What message do you want to give to people all over the world? Students, non-students?
Well, the message that was given to me, if I had to just break it down, bless everybody, help a few. Share your smiles with all. You don't have to share your sweat with everybody, but you get to share your smiles with everybody.
So thank you so much, Guru Prem. Namaste.
Sadhna.
Sadhna. Okay, cool. So basically, I don't know exactly how to phrase this question because it's a little difficult to articulate, but basically the idea behind it is there are a few paths to transformation. One is more of the jhana yogi, right? Jnana yogi, excuse me. The path of like knowledge, intellectualism, thinking about things, right? And then the other path would be one of more bhakti, one of more loving devotion, service, or even karma, which would be more action, which would be different. So like you have sort of mind, a body, and heart or soul. But one thing that I'm curious about is, especially with what you were talking about in terms of bowing the head to the heart, is how you sort of see your job when you're working with people as a spiritual guide or counselor. Because I know you do your fair share of teaching, but then at what point is it now we have to just maintain silence and do a silent meditation?
Well, I do just work on people too, and I don't talk, because I can see in their bodies where their emotions and spirits have failed to articulate a proper relationship, and it'll show in their posture. It'll show in your patterns again and again repeated become defined not only by the patterns but your relationship to gravity. Then you get parts of your body that hurts. So we can start in a very visceral, physical place, and a lot of it doesn't have to be spoken, it just gets dealt with. There's communication happening without words being spoken.
So this is what I'm curious about. So the communication when you're doing body work is you're adjusting things.
Yes.
Right.
But I'm always communicating, trying to bring them to an understanding. It's a complement, what I do. It's complementary. If they take herbs or better foods, it's supplementary. The purpose of it is to bring them to a state of elementary realization. It begins with recognition. You recognize where you are relative to where you want to be. And you'll find a teacher, a helper, a priest, or a physician to help move you from where you are, which you're usually not satisfied with, to a place you want to go to. Okay, then to get there, you're going to have to reclaim a relationship with your natural self. To do that, you're going to need other tools and guidance, depending on how far you want to go, that you can eventually get to the third and final stage, which will be realization. You need teachers and teachings, otherwise time and space will teach you. I think people would, if they had a choice, they might prefer a teacher or teaching, because that's a graceful way to learn. There will always be pain. That's what, it's been said that pain is the currency of transformation. A teacher will teach you to spend it wisely. Time and space will make you suffer into transformation. You'll be transformed.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm thinking about right now is that from what you were saying, it seems like a lot of problems come from thinking, come from the mind, from the head, the ego, right? But then if a teacher presents ideas, right, systems to the mind, if they teach, if they lecture, do you think that that's a conflict that provides a...
Nope, you got to learn. That's when I took piano lessons. You use your head, think again and again and again and again. No, like this. So use your head. Okay, and then eventually you may get invited either by your teacher or by the teacher within you will invite you to just play. Your head bows, and now you can do it by heart. You can't start it by heart. You have to start by teaching your head obedience, and there's often repetition.
Okay.
Regurgitate, resuscitate. Before you can innovate, you got to just imitate. And that's part of the training, that redundancy. Same with mantras. God, why isn't Sadhna enough if I just say it once? Why thousands and thousands of times? Knock, knock, knock. God, are you listening? Knock. No, God's listening. You're not. The knocking is so you'll wake up.
Whoa. Okay, interesting. Because, that's a different perspective. Because some people, they'll say like, oh, forget that. You know what I mean? Like anything that has to be intellectualized, they'll demonize. But what you're saying is that sometimes especially if you're at a low enough place, you need to intellectualize it in order to get yourself past that threshold.
And this whole ego thing, look, the ego is the disease, but it's also the cure. The thing is, a teacher will teach you how to put your ego behind you so it can be used to push you towards your destiny. Eventually, in little bites, little bits, your ego will be consumed. If you try to throw your ego away, you'll be a failure. If you don't recognize your ego, you'll be a failure. You have to use the ego, but at the same time, you sacrifice it in small bits.
Sacrificing it by
your actions, by your service, a little at a time. And you'll be challenged along the way as you grow in your skill and stature, and the tests come. Do you want to be humble, or do you just want the applause?
So, relating to this is pain.
Pain. Well, there's 3 attitudes about pain that I've learned. There's the lazy approach. No pain, no pain. That's kind of lazy.
Or pain, no pain.
Well, on the other side, right, no pain, no pain. Then there's no pain, no gain. If you approach that to the wrong attitude, that's crazy. That's a fanatic. Then
but sometimes you need that though, right?
That's why there's the Buddhist middle path, which would be something like, pain is the currency of transformation. Currency, it's like money, but it's a current. transformation, spend it wisely. You're going to be transformed by pain. You need it to transform yourself. You need to be able to use it in a wise way so the transformation is somewhat predictable.
Somewhat predictable. Somewhat.
Somewhat. I mean, listen, you have to be prepared for the unexpected, but there needs to be, if you're going to study piano, you want to be predictable. One day you're going to be able to play it. I'm not suggesting you're only going to play Chopin. You may discover, Tchaikovsky, which you may not have considered. The point is, there are some predictabilities that you can expect, but there's a lot of surprises too.
So I remember one thing that you said to me when I was younger, which was really transformative for me, which was pain is the medicine, right?
You forgot the other half, and I didn't. You know who said this? This was said by Guru Nanak, actually, in Kabir. It's another great saint. Pain is the medicine, pleasure is the disease. Why?
Wow, that makes it even more intense.
No, but you have to understand in the context. If your life is about pursuing pleasure, then you'll miss peace. If your life is about on a path towards peace, you have to go through the pain of reformation of yourself, and you'll be rewarded with pleasures along the way that you will receive and not take, and you will gratefully acknowledge and accept them. Whether it be food or sex or whatever you're going to be given as pleasure, they're not yours to take. They're yours to receive. If you start taking them, you will be taken from you.
So one thing that's really interesting for me is that a lot of the resistance that I find in people who are unwilling to tread this path is really they're coming from that perspective of no pain, right? Of all they want is pleasure. So, I mean, the thing is how does someone break out of that?
Why should they break out of that? And what gives you the right to make them break out of that?
That's a great point. I mean, but just because they want to. They don't want to suffer anymore.
The only people you're supposed to share any information about transformation with are those who ask you. You have to share the gospel with only your smiles. And if they like your smile, they'll ask you how you got it. Then, because it's always the student who goes to the teacher. As I said before, you bless everybody, you don't fix everyone. If they come to you, let people, if they want to pick the path of suffering, you can bless them. You don't want them to do it.
Well, but what I'm saying is that someone does want to change, right? Or even myself, right? It's like I go, well, there's something I want to do, right? But it's painful. You have to walk through the fire to do it.
You don't want to be a fanatic either. Look, if you're making great progress, Ben, you're going to take 10 steps forward and 7 back. Pretty good in baseball. Batting 300, I think that's pretty decent. And it's not, no one makes vertical progress. I've never seen it. It's going to be something like that. And the reason you have to fall back is so you can reestablish a new base in which to move from. You have to do it in that fashion. And you just have to accept, this is, you've been at this a long time. You may have a ways to go. What matters is that you came to Earth to be human, and human defined means hue spectrum of light, mind is mind. Full spectrum of mind or enlightened mind. You came here to add to the beauty. You have certain gifts, certain talents, certain resources that if you utilize, the world will be better off because you are here. And that's really what it is. You came here to add to the beauty. You've got to listen to your wisdom, wise heart in order to know how to act and bring forth those qualities to make the earth better. You don't have to fix everything, but you can't get away from not fixing what's put in front of you.
Also, if you get caught up in that whole I need to fix everything thing, you just get overwhelmed.
I suffer from that. It's called, you get professionally angry then. And then you get mad that God's doing such a terrible job. Why can't you just give me the one, I'll fix hunger. Give me the one, homeless, gone. People will show up on time. That's easy to do. Sing on pitch, I'll do that to myself. I mean, I would just do that, but that's not really what it is. The whole thing's a big illusion, created, custom-made for you. That's right. And when you recognize that this whole thing was custom-made for you, so you could finally get to know yourself, the illusion changes according to your relationship to your soul. So when you change, everything around you gets a new script, if you will. But people don't want to do that. They're just, they're stuck. They want things to change first. Give me comfort first, and then I'll think about pain. And then you get hooked, addicted to listen, comforts are fine, comfort foods, but bless them. I mean, no one's here to be perfect, but need to make some effort to discipline yourself.
It's interesting, right? Because we're talking about pain as though moving towards this pain was for the end of pain itself. But really the point is that you do it to experience an ultimate pleasure.
Bliss, if you will. You're going to transcend. It's where, why in yoga you practice pratyahara. Ultimately, you try to withdraw your senses from defining who you are. They are devices to give you a human experience. And you can calibrate them through the yogic practices so that you can be so sensitive you can feel everyone's pain. And so contained within yourself, your soul, that you could sit and be burned alive and not move from your stillness.
Which is what happened to one of the Sikh gurus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who was that?
There was a few that were tortured. Many of Sikhs have been tortured because they could go into the domain of their soul by having so many many years of practicing, meditating in God's name. They were so in their devotion, they could transcend the senses, the pratyahara, if you will, and they could face unimaginable tortures and still be in a state of grace.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's always that voice, pulling us towards our comfort. This demon voice saying, don't do it. Don't move past that wall, right? Don't jump out into that abyss.
It's even more basic. Let's pick a local headline. Let's see, last few days, what's the headline been? Our former head of the CIA. The pleasure of the younger woman was so great. It's a lethal combination. Power, hormones, and temptation. J. Paul Getty used to be the richest man in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know what he said many years ago? He said, when he was married 8 times, so he was an expert. He said, show me a rich and powerful man who claims monogamy, and I'll show you a liar.
I mean, I'm sure there are, some, but...
No, there are some saints. But the point is, majority are not. Majority, when you give them power affects the testosterone level in men. So you've got a hormonal situation. 1, 2, you've got temptation.
Yeah, a lot of temptation.
It's between the power and the hormones and the temptation. What are you going to do? So unless you have a humble heart, unless you have a way of transmuting that and to recognize what it really is. If you're on the path of peace, the pleasures that will tempt you, you look at, you recognize, and you just smile and move on. But if you, only thing you remember, you get to be 60 years old, you're thinking the greatest pleasure I ever had was when I chased, women when I was 20. That feeling of the pursuit. I never felt more alive. So 60-year-old man in a position of power is caught between fear of mortality, but he doesn't have fear of God. Just fear of mortality. And what makes the fear of mortality go away is great pleasure. And no pleasure will ever be compared with the pleasure of a young man in pursuit of the woman, if they're straight in that regard.
So you're saying the alternative is to turn to God?
Well, you have to be on that, the generator, organizer, and the deliverer. If you want to be delivered, you have to recognize what's generating you, what's organizing you, and if you either are on the path of deliverance or that D becomes the path of destruction. That's your choice. You want to be delivered, you want to be destroyed. If you want to be delivered, you'll be sacrificing your ego so that these temptations will become minimalized. They're there, you can be challenged by, God knows I've been challenged, all kinds of things early on. Most challenges I've passed, I've had a few C- along the way. Of course, I haven't failed any that I can think of. I realized I was really lucky I didn't when I think back on some.
Yeah. But, I mean, are you someone who's had a unusual ability or talent for devotion? Or have you struggled through it in order to succeed?
I've struggled through it too, but because I was transformed by pain early enough in life, where I decided I could either continue being in pain and finding methods of pleasure to make me forget about the deep pain, or I could start by putting on the brakes before I crashed and deal with the actual illness, deal with the wounds.
Yeah, which requires more temporary pain, right, to step into it, but then less on the end.
Yeah, I had to be willing to submit. I had to be willing to agree to obey and do things that were way out of my comfort zone. But that,
like what?
getting up early. When I was, about your age, maybe a bit younger, my goal in life when I went to your university, USC, and my goal...
As a frat boy, too.
I was in Sigma Chi fraternity, definitely. And my goal was to be able to have enough money where I could afford to get up at the crack of noon.
That's it? Just a crack, not like 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Noon, that's it?
Crack of noon. I was going to get up whenever I wanted. That was a successful life. And now, for me, a successful life is to be able to get up at 3:30. My success is measured whether I got enough rest that I can, because I want to do that. And most mornings I get up reasonably close to that. Slept in this morning till 4:30. And I
Still pretty good though.
Yeah, but I did, and I'll do better tomorrow.
Yeah. So is that but you still do it though.
I still
do it. Yeah, and do you have any words of encouragement for if people are sort of hitting that hump and going, oh, I don't know.
Well, Yogi Bhajan's was, we use the simple mantra, keep up, and you'll be kept up.
Keep up.
Keep up. Keep up. Do your practice, do your sadhana. Hang out with people who have some light, so your darkness won't seem so dark. The company of the holy is what moves the spirit. You can't do it by yourself. You need a congregation of at least one person who's luminescent.
Or at least wants to be.
One person. You need to have somebody who has a little light, because consciousness is contagious. High and low, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely low. We've seen that.
No, listen, consciousness isn't taught, it's caught. You teach the basics, the preparations, so that when the time comes you can catch it. You're able to sponge it in, otherwise you're a dry, sponge that's full of debris and there's nothing to soak in.
Beautiful.
That cover it?
Yeah. Well, as I'm recording, is there anything else that you want to add? Lead us in a closing Kundalini chant?
Oh, sure, a chant. Yes, I can do that. Let's see, which one? There's so many to choose from. Well, we should probably just do Long Time Sunshine. That's the classic.
That's the classic.
May the long time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. May the long time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. Guide your way on, guide your way on.